any human being, howsoever poor he is, can knock at the door of a court and can ultimately get success from a court or relief from that court against the all-powerful government. Please remember, even though the individual citizens of India may be very poor, a lot of them can come and do come. And if they are so underprivileged that they cannot come, the public interest litigation is a very important weapon that the Supreme Court has developed, now to a fine art, in order to see that their rights also be protected. But yes, it is very difficult for courts to attempt to raise the poverty line. That is something that elected governments have to do. And if you find elected governments not doing it, the only constitutional way out is to throw out such government. Yes.
What I have, the doubt which I have is about what we have done for the last more than 60 years. I know in USA, such situation which is prevailing today in India was prevailing when the Second World War started in 1939. In 1930s, in decade of the 30s, they had somebody there, some politician, I don't know who was he coined a very noble thing, the basic financial security. And due to that basic financial security, everything was okay in USA within 30 years. The survey conducted in USA in 1970 shows that there was one of the article which I have, and I promise my Lord the Chief Justice to hand it over. I am sorry, sir, I could not say there is lot of bread and butter in USA and we don't know what to do. Can't such thing happen in India? Are we divide of all acumen and all learning? You may, sir, I don't know, you have been to USA and I had also experience to be there. So this was always pinching me. How we cannot do it within 60 years if they could do it within 30 years?
I'm very glad you raised this point of the USA. Don't forget, the USA really begins in 1789. Alright, so that's now 200 odd years. We have about 60 years, as you correctly said. Equally, the Great Depression of 1929 is what led to, I presume what you were saying, complete economic disaster for many people. Many of the rich got poor and the poor got even poorer. Now, as a result, the voter ultimately voted in, he did exactly what I told you. He voted in Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Roosevelt was voted in 1933. He was the only president to have served 4 terms. In fact, in the beginning of his 4th term, he died. And it is he who turned the economy around by several legislative measures which were called New Deal measures. This New Deal ultimately, therefore, was something which turned the country economically around, and therefore, in the 30 years you mentioned, ultimately America succeeded. So the way out was to change the then government, which was Herbert Hoover, which they did. And they brought in Roosevelt. Roosevelt happened to be an extremely dynamic and brilliant president. He pushed through all this reform, and America therefore got back on its feet. One other very interesting thing. Till 1937, 5-4, the US Supreme Court kept striking down New Deal legislation. In 1937, Roosevelt came out with a court packing plan and said, look, it's up to Congress ultimately to decide how many of you there should be. Today there are 9. At the beginning there were 6. I can make them 15 and pack the balance between 9 and 15 with all my people so that my legislation is upheld. At exactly that time, Justice Roberts, one of those judges, switched and became 5 the other way. As a result of which, one wag said a switch in time saves 9. And that switch in time, therefore after 37, allowed this legislation to move forward with the great results that it brought for America.
Sir, the idea and the question which has been left open for us to think, I think that the question of that, the answer of the NCART is not for the reason that the meaning of the secularism or the essence of the secularism which was thought by the forefathers of the Constitution is not being followed, and we must be taking the dictionary meaning of the secularism, that is non-religious, non-pious or anti-religious, or the faith or this religion of the non-believers, and the policies of the state are being thrusted upon like the policies of non-believers on the believers, which is again the fraud with the Constitution, as the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru has thwarted the K.T. Shah's try. He was trying to insert the word secular in this resolution when this resolution was put forward by the Justice Nehru, and now this word secular has been inserted by the army of the Kumar Mangalam, who invaded or infiltrated in the party at that time in Congress and influenced the Shrimati Gandhi during the emergency to insert these words so that they may be treated as the fundamentals of the or basic structure of the Constitution, whereas it does not convey the true meaning of the Sarvadharm Sambhav. And I was reading that the secularism last sigh of the Vrinda Cosmos and the Ratan Kapoor, they also criticized Nehru, that Nehru in 1929, he was saying that we'll be indifferent to the religion, and in 1947 that same Nehru says that we will be the equal respect for all religions, and he compromised with the religious peoples, and now the persons, is it not because of the meaning of the secularism does not convey what we want? One thing. And second, what you have said, that the religious means the high moral values, and in the name of secularism, when we put the high moral values away from the students, then is it not again the non-secular work? It's our duty to the best qualities of the person in the Quran, or the pious, the qualities of pious man in Gita, or Sermon on the Mount. All these, when we read all these things, these are one and the same. Should we not teach them? And third one, the Article 44. It says the Common Civil Code. Is it not again the violation of the Article 19? When it says the Common Civil Code, then we will enter into the personal laws of the persons. Then I have the right to profess. Then how I will profess when there will be interference in my personal laws? All these things are not because of this chaos, and Supreme Court has tried to define the secularism as a Sarvadharm Sambhav. Now kindly guide us whether we are thinking on the right line, or now the Supreme Court is also being criticized. The Supreme Court has also compromised the principles of the secularism. Is it the imposition of non-believers on the believers?
I take it your question really falls into two parts. One, what is the true meaning of secularism? And the second, as to whether, if in fact a uniform civil code was to be brought about, it would violate fundamental rights. I think this is the summary of really what you are trying to get at. Now, I feel that on point number one, you are absolutely correct. And in fact, that was the point number one which I ended with. Namely, true secularism is in order that you really achieve true secularism, it is very, very important to impart values to society. I agree 100% with you. Yes. Now, which is the best way that one can impart those values? I would say the best way is to look at what the founder of each great religious faith has said. The priests have said something different sometimes. They have sometimes reinforced what the founder said. But the founder has never gone wrong. So, if you are able to take, as you correctly said, the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita, you will find the ethical values that are contained in them, as indeed the ethical values that are contained in Zoroastrianism, in Jainism, in Buddhism, to be roughly the same. And when Jesus Christ was asked, how can you sum up the law in one sentence? His reply was fantastic, and that reply I think applies to every world religion. The law in one sentence is, treat thy brother as thyself and worship the Lord our God completely. I think it's a fantastic answer. It's an answer that obtains in summary what all the great religions teach. Metaphysics may differ, and they do differ completely. Right from atheism to monotheism to monism to all sorts. I mean, you have the entire panoply. In fact, within Hinduism itself. But what is important is, and this is, I think, the sum and substance of every great religion, as you sow, so shall you reap. Now this must be brought out. I agree with you. Second, on your second point, a uniform civil code is something that the state is expected to ultimately lay down for all its citizens. Now why a uniform civil code? Please understand, civil as opposed to religious. You are living, civitas is society. Basically, your civil rights are rights which affect you as a member of this pluralistic society in which we live. Now the pluralistic society in which we live should have equal rights no matter what denomination you belong to. So if the correct understanding of uniform civil code is put through by a government, I don't see any infraction of any fundamental right. The idea is that your rights as a citizen, qua citizen, should be exactly the same of India. Yes? Yes.
So after listening to your very good views, there is one only simple query which is coming in my mind, sir.
Yeah.
And that query is this, that you see the pluralistic society, there should be equal rights to all the citizens of India. I ask, being an Indian first, then being an Hindu, that there is a provision in the Muslim Act that a Muslim can marry more than once, whereas in Hindu can marry just, Muslim can marry more than once and Hindu can marry just once. There is one aspect I just wanted an answer from you, sir. And the second thing which I want to highlight is, sir, that I am not able to understand, sir, that the parliament is the main focus here. That parliament is, or we can say legislature is one of the important pillars as judiciary and executive is. And it is the legislature which enact the laws. And I want to reiterate this view, sir, that why not a good qualification or good perspective coming out of the Article 20, right to life and personal liberty, sir. That why is it only that the politicians are there who are called as very important persons who are delegating, who are discussing the law of our India, of our country, and there is no requisite qualification of the mandate being given or being kept into consideration for them so that they can make a good policies and IAs and all the very good officers can help them up. I'm pinpointing Article 21, right to life and personal liberty, sir. That if we say right to life and personal liberty, then there should be an equal mandate to all the Indians to be there in any zone of profession, maybe politics, maybe in the judiciary there is an executive I'm talking about, and in legislature also. Why it is after every 10 years there is an amendment, and why all these problems are coming in a democratic country, sir? This is a very simple question, sir.
Now there are again two parts to your question. First part deals with the rights of various religious faiths in our polity and why are they different. And the second seems to deal with why can't we somehow straight-lace the politicians through the fundamental rights chapter. Now, so far as the first is concerned, I'm very glad you took up the example that you took. Please remember that till 1955, a Hindu could marry 1 million wives. Alright? A Muslim could only marry 4. Now, point number 1. Point number 2, the legislation of 1955 brought about a tremendous social reform. the social reform that was brought about by Islam in the 6th century AD must also be appreciated. What was the reform that they brought about? In fact, chapter 4 of the Quran deals with this and says, marry of women 1, 2, 3 or 4. And those women ought generally to be women who are outcasts of society, namely orphans and widows. So when you are told to marry 4 women, you are told to marry women who are preferably orphans or widows, number 1. Number 2, verse 129 of chapter 4 of the Quran also then adds, it's very important to treat all your wives equally. And try howsoever hard you might, it's very difficult to treat them equally. Now what do you therefore get? What's the message? Ultimate message is, you should marry 1. If you are going to marry 2, 3 and 4, please see that you do some social service along with each one of those marriages. Alright? That's the answer so far as why people have different rights, because they come from different backgrounds, they follow different religion. As I told you, this is a pluralistic society. We cannot stamp any particular faith with anything. Everybody is given the right ultimately to freely profess. And one other interesting thing, when the fundamental right to freely profess every religion was given, the word propagate was not there in the draft article. Propagate was added after debate. So that vexed question also of conversion is answered by the expression propagate. That I have a right to propagate my faith, that is to spread it round by every possible lawful means, not unlawful means. Non-violent means, not violent means. 1. Second, how do we bring our politicians to book? It's a question I think that every one of us has been debating. We've come up with different answers, but ultimately it's very, very difficult. I can only hearken back to Dr. Rajendra Prasad's speech when he was introducing the Constitution. He said that look, however defective a document, like a Constitution, if the men who man it are first rate, the document will be read as first rate. Howsoever excellent a document, if ultimately the men who man it are not first rate, the document fails, because the document is but a machine. He used the word machine. It is the human being ultimately, and it's the background with which that human being ultimately brings with him into our polity that ultimately comes. And for that, education is basic. And for that education, I have already given you my view, that it is important to know what your brother is about. It is equally important to know where you stand, and ethical values are a must, which must be infused as far as possible into society. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would request Honorable Mr. Justice Rajiv Sharma to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nariman. You can simply be compared with a walking encyclopedia. You have taken us from Magna Carta to Bill of Rights, French Revolution, American Constitution. You have given and made reference to Shankar Prasad case, Sajan Singh case, Golaknath case, and Keshwanand Bharti case. I'll also like to add a footnote here that as far as Keshwanand Bharti case is concerned, an attempt was made to get this judgment reviewed. The matter was heard by the same number of judges who have heard the main case. It was argued for few hours and were adjourned abruptly to be taken up next day. When the judges assembled, the matter was again taken up, but thereafter it was said by the Chief Justice that we don't want to proceed with the matter further. And surprisingly, when the matter was listed before the same number of judges, there was no regular petition filed. It is intriguing, it is very mysterious how and under what circumstances the petition was listed before the Honorable Supreme Court. Now, Mr. Nariman has taken us through a landmark judgment, Minerva Mills case, Menka Gandhi's case. Then he has also touched in a very subtle manner the manner which the judges are appointing themselves. It is known as judges appointing judges. The Law Commission has made recommendations repeatedly that as far as the appointment of judges is concerned, it should be on the basis of broad-based consensus. They have specifically recommended that the members of the bar should be consulted at the time when the appointment of the judges is made. We don't know how far this will be taken into consideration by Mr. Molly. Then the high point of Mr. Nariman's speech was that only the best and best should be taken in the judiciary, maybe at the High Court level or maybe at the Supreme Court level. But in between there is an impediment that the word or the expression seniority has crept in. How far this word seniority can be get diluted by the efforts of Mr. Nariman, we are not very sure. Then Mr. Nariman has also taken a very important issue under Article 21A. It is in grey area whether Hinduism and Islam can be taught at the school level, at the infant stage. What would be the pitfalls of introducing Hinduism and the Islam with their tenets, how far the society will be benefited by it, it is in grey area. The only concern which we have today is that the hallmark of rule of law is consistency. But every constitution and constitutional interpretive process demands is that whatever has been laid down, there must be consistency. The views and the opinions must not get diluted or strengthened from era to era. We have seen in the Supreme Court era when the fundamental rights could not be touched, then came the socialism era, then came pro-labor area, then pro-PIL. Then we don't live in eras. It is a continuous process, and for maintaining rule of law, consistency is the hallmark, and we must strive for maintaining rule of law. We are thankful to Mr. Nariman. We are equally thankful to Mrs. Nariman for gracing the occasion and proving. I don't know whether Mr. Nariman has listened to what she has told, but I have taken definitely I am enlightened by it. I must stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justice Rajiv Sharma. Now I request all of you to please join us for a cup of tea. Thank you.